That's tough.
Is there any part of the actual investigation that you would do over?
I wouldn't change anything.
Nothing?
No.
The deceased is a cop.
No, nor should it.
This is Michael Proctor, a former Massachusetts state trooper who was the lead investigator tasked with determining who killed John O'Keefe.
There's a little more emotion involved.
That afternoon, Proctor and Buchanan interviewed Brian Albert, who told them John never came inside his house.
John O'Keefe and Karen Reed never entered my house.
Jennifer McCabe, she also says
John never came in the house.
During my training and experience, I've been to pedestrian strikes where both shoes are right at the point of impact. People get ripped completely out of their clothing, and their clothes are at the point of impact.
They noticed damage to the right rear taillight.
This is interesting. ABC showed a police report which indicates taillight to be shattered. And as we know now, it was shattered not at 34 Fairview, but at the Sallyport garage in Canton.
In their official police report, they describe it as shattered.
It's a large housing unit, so a significant chunk is missing from that taillight.
Trooper Michael Proctor is relieved of duty effective immediately.
Suspended without pay.
I just remember dropping on my knees and laying on my lawn, like crying. I couldn't even talk. I was complete hysterics. And I just remember my mother being like, what? And I kind of gathered myself and I'm like, they relieved me of duty. What really got me was my union rep. He had to come over to my house and pick up all my uniforms. And the one time I broke down was putting my Class A uniform. You go through a 6-month academy and you're very proud to put that uniform on.
Wah, I can't wear my uniform. Wah. How do you think Karen felt putting on a jail uniform and facing potentially wearing it for the rest of her life?
In March, the State Police Trial Board dishonorably discharges Michael Proctor on 2 charges.
I don't know any trooper that's been punished for personal text messages on their personal phone, let alone fired.
Nice. Cheers to that.
A supervisor on one of Proctor's text chains,
Trooper Bukaki,
is also disciplined.
We learned that they no longer cared for the dog. I don't know if get rid of is accurate.
When I first started investigating this case, I thought someone with special needs, this person right here, was testifying, and I couldn't understand why. But it turns out this guy's an actual detective. The residents of Massachusetts not only hired this guy, they promoted him. And I don't think he has special needs.
Well, they don't have it anymore, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what would you call it?
Giving it up for adoption, I guess? I don't know. I'm not a pet owner.
Trooper Bukaki.
They no longer own the dog.
Okay, so they got rid of it. It's like you get rid of a car, right? Right?
You can get rid of a car, yeah.
Okay.
Has any crime ever been solved in Massachusetts? This is a detective, I think.
And you can get rid of a dog. That's all I'm asking.
Yes, you can get rid of a dog, yes.
Okay.
For failure to counsel a subordinate during an investigation.
Trooper Bukaki.
And he loses 5 vacation days.
Aw, poor baby, he lost 5 vacation days. What's more surprising is he's in charge of Michael Proctor.
That she went see if McCarthy's, where she met John and some of his friends, and then went over to the waterfall and met a group there.
Why do we know the facts better than the lead investigator?
In that they were, it was Jen McCabe invited them back to Fairview Road.
They seize her car and they tow it. They then process the vehicle for evidence.
Did you know who Kenneth Berkowitz was?
Yes.
Who's Kenneth Berkowitz?
He was the chief of the Canton Police. A Sallyport is a garage, essentially.
Okay. You were aware that the Sallyport garage had a security camera?
It would make sense because that's where we bring prisoners to drop them off.
You have to answer the question based on your own independent methods. And if you don't, you can't reference what you know from the movie.
All right. There were cameras in the Sallyport.
The main issue with this witness is she said that she saw Higgy Bear and Chief Berkowitz in the Sallyport with the SUV.
Did you tell those law enforcement agents on August 9th, 2023, that you saw Brian Higgins and Chief Berkowitz go into the Sallyport together and alone with the SUV for a wildly long time?
That was my recollection at the time.
So you did say that?
At the time, that is what I recollected.
Okay.
Access granted, Brian Higgins.
In the first trial, Higgy Bear was questioned about whether he was in the Sallyport once the SUV arrived.
Booking to Sallyport, booking to Sallyport.
And there's no record in that document of you exiting.
Yes. I don't, yeah, there's no record. I don't know if it records you going up. That's fine.
There's no record of it, correct?
Not that I can see here, no.
Old Higgy Bear fell for a classic lawyer trick there. After Alan's question was answered, he paused. And Higgy Bear didn't know what to do. And generally someone that is being dishonest with you will then speak again, coming up with an excuse. And that's exactly what old Higgy Bear did.
I'm aware her car ended up there, yes.
You and Chief Berkowitz were moving in and through Canton PD together, correct?
At some points we might have been together. I'm not, I mean, we weren't together all day.
Was he there at 5:36 and 37 seconds at the same time Karen Reed's vehicle was delivered?
I don't remember.
Were you in the Sallyport at 5:36 when the car was delivered?
I don't have any recollection of that, no.
One thing to say I don't remember, it's another thing to say no, I was not there.
I don't remember being there, no.
Is it possible that you could have been there when that car was delivered?
I don't believe I was, no.
You don't believe you were?
I don't believe I was, no.
You're aware that the video surveillance feed from the Sallyport garage at or around 5:36, the precise time when the car was delivered, is just missing.
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you receive a call at all around 6:12 p.m. from Brian Albert?
I don't know what day you're referring to.
The 29th.
No, I don't remember any phone calls like that.
Do you remember 3 minutes later getting another call from Chief Berkowitz at 6:16 p.m. that lasted about 5 minutes and 15 seconds?
No.
It's clear now that Higgy Bear and the Chief of Police Berkowitz were both in the Sallyport with Karen Reed's SUV when it arrived. And that little snotty cop told the FBI that they were both there for an unusual amount of time. It's really starting to appear that both Proctor and Buchanan had nothing to do with planting the taillight. It's more likely that the chief and Higgy Bear noticed that the troopers were pretty dopey and they planted it.
Okay, I see those, yes.
There was a call at 6:12 that Brian Albert made to you for a duration of 1 minute and 7 seconds, correct?
Yes.
And right after that, there was a call from Chief Berkowitz to you at 6:16 that lasted 5 minutes and 15 seconds, correct?
Yes.
Remember, the dopey cops using the leaf blower at 34 Fairview did not find any taillight whatsoever. And it wasn't until after Karen's SUV arrived at the Canton Sallyport and after Higgy Bear and Berkowitz were both seen there that suddenly taillights started to appear at the house.
Did you testify at the other hearing that, in fact, what was discussed was the substance of the taillights being found at the location?
No, that's not what that was in reference to.
By the time you interviewed with Trooper Proctor, you had already had numerous conversations with Brian Albert. Is that safe to say?
Well, the interview was with both Trooper Proctor, Sergeant Buchanan.
Trooper Bukaki.
Of course, I've talked to Brian Albert because of what took place.
Higgins, that was a yes or no question.
Yeah, of course I've talked to him, yes.
Okay, and the answer is yes, right? Can we agree?
The answer is yes.
Ooh, our Higgy Bear's cute when he's angry.
Thank you. By the time you spoke with Trooper Proctor and Trooper Buchanan,
Trooper Bukaki.
you had already had numerous conversations with Chief Berkowitz, correct?
Yes.
Is there a reason you don't want to answer that question?
I don't have a problem.
Objection, Your Honor.
Is there a reason?
Well, I feel he's trying to make it sound like something it wasn't.
I'm not trying to make it sound like anything, sir. I'm asking a question. Had you discussed this case or the issues surrounding this case with those folks?
I did discuss things when I went back to the house, yes.
And that was before you met with Trooper Proctor and Trooper Buchanan?
Trooper Bukaki.
Yes, that's correct.
You had already spent an enormous amount of time at Canton PD. We've just gone through those records. Is that right?
I have been at Canton PD, yes.
And you had been able to talk to, you had access at least to all the officers, correct?
Access for what purpose?
Just to walk by them, to hear what they were saying, see what they were doing.
Yeah, it's not what I was doing, no.
I'm not accusing you of doing anything. I'm saying you had access to the individuals within the Canton PD, correct?
To interact if needed, yes.
Very obviously, you had access to the Sallyport.
Had access, yes, and that's a cut-through I used all the time.
And anything that was in it, correct?
I wouldn't need anything in it.
It was only after all of that that you were interviewed by Michael Proctor and Trooper Buchanan.
Trooper Bukaki.
Correct?
I wasn't interviewed to the following days, that's correct.
At some point on February 4th, Chief Berkowitz called you to personally inform you that he had personally found taillight at 34 Fairview. Is that right?
He did tell me that, yes.
And to be clear, that's the same Ken Berkowitz that you were with in the Sallyport.
I don't recall being in the Sallyport with him, no.
That night, state police investigators report finding pieces of red plastic taillight and a clear piece of plastic at the scene. Pieces that they say appear to match the missing pieces from Karen Reed's SUV. Based on the investigation, what does the evidence tell you happened?
Later in the day, that collectively, as we all met as a unit, that
Owners of the house isn't going to get any shit for this, right?
That's how I interpreted it.
Yeah, you interpreted it like he's not going to get in any trouble. He's not going to be a suspect, correct?
Correct.
And he's not going to be implicated in any way. Is that right?
Correct.
And your answer was one word. What was that word?
Nope. Well, he's not going to receive any shit, sir, because he had Mr. Albert, the homeowner, had nothing to do with Mr. O'Keefe's death.
And
16 hours in, he knew Brian Albert had nothing to do with it.
you knew this 16 hours into your investigation.
Yes.
Less than a day.
Yes.
To your satisfaction.
To my satisfaction and to all the members of my unit who investigated that day.
You hadn't been to the crime scene by the time you wrote this text, correct?
Correct.
Nah, we don't need to go there.
You hadn't been inside the home, correct?
No.
Nah.
Questioned a grand total of 3 percipient witnesses at this point, correct?
Yes.
And 2 of the 3 were named McCabe, right?
Correct.
And 1 of the 3 was named Albert, correct?
Yes.
And it's against that backdrop that you wrote, nope, the homeowner's not going to get any shit because he's a cop, right? Did you, in your mind, have this case wrapped up? Was it cut and dry in your mind?
Yes. You had the one shoe found at the scene, taillight pieces at the scene, the one shoe at the hospital, her statements. Did I hit him? Could I have hit him? We knew. We were
Case over.
very confident. We knew that what had transpired.
Which was?
Karen Reed backed her Lexus vehicle into John O'Keefe.
His highly offensive text messages about Karen Reed, they rocked that first trial.
From all accounts, he didn't do anything wrong. She's a whack job. C-U-N-T.
So don't spell it. You have to. So these are your words, Trooper Proctor?
Yes, Your Honor.
Go ahead and say them.
Cunt. Yes, she's a babe. Weird Fall River accent, though. No ass.
Within hours of that first trial ending, Michael Proctor was relieved of duty by the Massachusetts State Police. He was later fired. Who are you writing to?
My good buddies that I've been friends with since first grade.
And then Bird decides to chime in.
My good buddies.
Good. No ass bitch. Right?
Yes, that's what he wrote. Canton hasn't had a homicide in about 20 years. So they're naturally interested. Just regrettable messages.
How did you respond to Bird saying, good, no ass bitch?
I laughed.
Thought that was funny, did you, Trooper Proctor? Thought that was funny?
It was unprofessional of me. That's something I shouldn't have done.
Well, I think we all know it was unprofessional. It was a lot of things. I'm asking you, did you think it was funny?
Well, according to my response at the time, apparently. But in all the content and the messages, what you don't see is a conspiracy.
What do you see?
I see someone who's caught up in the moment of investigating, a fellow police officer and just saying inappropriate things.
Can you see why people called you sexist and misogynist?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I could 100% understand why. It was made in jest. It's a figure of speech. Hopefully she killed herself like that. Not literally.
That's a figure of speech?
Yes.
Do you use that commonly?
Yes. Not commonly, but it's a figure of speech I made in jest. It wasn't literally.
They're referencing the text messages indicating he wants Karen to off herself.
Literally, I hope she kills herself.
At what point did you develop such strong negative feelings about Karen Reed that you would say things like, hopefully she kills herself, or calling her the C word?
So don't spell it. You go ahead and say them.
Cunt.
In a court of law, you must be specific. You cannot abbreviate.
Those feelings developed as the case went on.
I mean, can you see how people might think, he was caught in this instance speaking about a suspect in this way. Maybe it's happened in other cases as well.
I 100% understand why people would think that. But when you have, a fellow police officer around my age, 2 kids of his own.
White, male.
It generates an emotion.
What happens to those of us that are black, not a police officer, and not a man?
And I expressed those emotions in a negative way, which I shouldn't have. I shouldn't even, been texting my friends anything.
And some of his texts were with colleagues, including 2 superiors.
At the Massachusetts State Police, for God's sake. And what was their response? Sergeant Buchanan,
Trooper Bukaki,
liked this conduct with a big old thumbs up.
When we first got into her phone, the number one thing I wanted to review was location data, text messages.
What did you write after you talked about going through the, quote, retarded client's phone?
No nudes so far.
No nudes so far. And you said that to your bosses.
Yes, sir.
You were looking for naked photographs of Miss Reed on a Wednesday night as you sat in your office at 9:44 p.m., correct?
No, not correct. And when we got into the phone, I texted the guys at work, our work chain, that joke. No nude so far, guys. No evidence because it didn't happen. I spent 2 days on the stand. That was Alan Jackson's opportunity to bring that up and question me on it.
Specifically asking you whether you planted evidence.
Yeah, not one question. They believe.
I truly believe now Proctor and Buchanan were so dopey, they had no clue the evidence was being planted.
That the state police, multiple units within the state police, the Canton Police Department, about a dozen civilians are all in this conspiracy to frame a woman we don't know. And over the last 2.5, 3 years, not one person has said, wait a minute, I'm not going down for this.
It's not framing, it's covering up a crime, which is a lot easier to do. But don't worry, Proctor, we're coming for all of you, especially you, Higgy Bear.
Here's what really happened.
Is there any part of the actual investigation that you would do over?
Because it's blowing up into this crazy so-called conspiracy, maybe I could have avoided it by, looking at other people's cars just to say we did it.
Wow, did you hear that? Maybe I should have avoided this by looking into other people's cars just to say I did it. That is what we call pretext in the law. You don't look into other people's cars just to say you did it to support your original conclusion. You look in the other cars to find evidence, you big dope.
There's some witnesses maybe we could have interviewed a little sooner.
Nah, you solved the case in 16 hours.
But overall, myself and every detective in that office worked this case like we always do. And so I wouldn't change anything.
Proctor's being very credible here, and now we know Higgy Bear and Berkowitz knew they had a mark in this dope. After all the evidence that came out, he still believes that his investigation was thorough after 16 hours.
Nothing.
No.
As the lead investigator and the case agent, you're aware it's also your responsibility and your obligation to investigate all potential individuals, right? All potential suspects.
I guess I have to.
Yes.
You're obligated to investigate anybody who would have a motive, a means, and an opportunity to commit the crime or the offense, correct?
Correct.
Motive includes anything from financial gain to could just be revenge, right?
Yes.
Or it could be someone who's interested in someone romantically, correct?
So, or it could be an argument contained inside a vehicle as well.
Yeah, which is the conclusion you jumped to 17 hours into your investigation, right?
It's something, evidence we have contained within cell phones reiterates that fact.
So when you decided that the girl, Miss Reed, was going to get serious charges against her, didn't have any indication of any intent, you just decided, oh, okay, I'm just going to go with the physical evidence today. I'll figure out intent later. I'll figure out motive later, right?
Yes.
What about means? The physical ability to commit the crime, right? That's obviously important.
We're speaking about Higgy Bear here.
Yes.
And the opportunity. It's a physical proximity to the incident, correct? Or the
Correct.
physical ability to commit the crime, correct?
Uh-oh, Higgy Bear has that too.
Correct.
Did you investigate all potential suspects who would have had the motive, means, and opportunity to kill John O'Keefe?
Yes, and that motive, means, factored in with the physical evidence pointed directly at Miss Reed. There's no one else had any motive. Mr. O'Keefe never went inside Fairview Road.
Let's talk about Brian Higgins for a second. You personally interviewed Mr. Higgins, correct?
Sergeant Buchanan
Trooper Bukaki.
and I did, yes.
You waited until February 10th to conduct a pre-scheduled interview with Mr. Higgins, didn't you?
Yes.
And you interviewed him in the presence of his attorney, correct?
Correct.
He told you that he was engaged in a flirtatious relationship with Miss Reed?
He did.
So you became aware pretty early on that Mr. Higgins at least had a motive to want to visit harm on John O'Keefe, correct?
No, absolutely not.
Well, you knew he had this flirtatious relationship with Karen Reed, is that right? You became aware that Karen Reed actually ignored text messages from Mr. Higgins while at the Waterfall Bar and Grill with John O'Keefe, correct? At 2:20 a.m., Brian Higgins sent a text message to John O'Keefe prompting him to go to 34 Fairview, correct?
I don't recall that text.
Do you recall a text from Brian Higgins to John O'Keefe after they left Waterfall? Where are you at?
I don't recall that one either.
Brian Higgins certainly had the means to commit the crime, correct?
No, I don't.
He's a big guy. Certainly had the physical ability to get into a physical altercation with John O'Keefe.
Hell yeah, our Higgy Bear can whip some ass.
Just because he's a big guy doesn't mean doesn't have the means or the motive to hurt Mr. O'Keefe.
I wouldn't ask
They were
about
friends. They were friends.
He said, "You're kind of a loner." I responded, "No, not really. I have a ton of buddies, but I only let a handful of friends in that I'm tight with." And then I typed "circle of trust" in quotes.
Some circle of trust. The second John turns his back, Higgy Bear's making out with his girlfriend.
They were friends. The motive to hurt Mr. O'Keefe. They were friends.
I wasn't asking about motive. I'm asking about means. Could he throw a punch? Knock a guy down, knock a guy out?
I can't speak to his fighting ability, sir.
Well, you've met him. Yeah, he's huge. Do you agree? He's a big dude, right?
Yeah, he's a big guy.
Bigger than me, right?
Yeah.
Bigger than you.
Yep.
And literally in the minutes before John O'Keefe's death, you saw video surveillance of Brian Higgins and Brian Albert taking fighting stances with one another, correct?
I interpreted that as horsing around.
As we've uncovered, it was more than horsing around. It was Higgy Bear trying desperately to get Karen's attention. It wasn't practice fighting, but Proctor and us also missed the fact that Higgy Bear was taunting John just moments before he left the bar. Then text him 20 minutes later, ask him if he's coming to the house.
Night at 2:22 a.m., there was a call between him and Brian Albert that morning.
I was not aware of that.
Might have been important to your investigation, don't you think?
Depends what that. I don't know what the call was about.
Sorry, finish that. Depends.
I don't know what the call was about. I don't know if they actually connected and communicated what the length of the call was. So
Right. And you never asked, did you?
I was unaware that call took place.
And you're unaware that that call took place because you didn't get his phone, Trooper Proctor, right?
Typically, we don't get witnesses' phones, sir.
You were unaware of that call at that time because you didn't seek his phone, correct?
Is there any part of the actual investigation that you would do over?
I wouldn't change anything.
Nothing.
No.
Wow. It is just amazing that this was the person who was the lead investigator on a case that could have sent Karen to prison for the rest of her life. Now that we know Karen is not the killer, we are pursuing all the people that had the means, motive, and opportunity. That leaves only a few people that could have committed this crime. And we are moving our cuddly Higgy Bear right to the top as the #1 suspect.